And the author writes, by faith, the people passed through the Red Sea as if it were dry land. But when the Egyptians attempted to do so, they were drowned. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell after they had been encircled for 7 days. By faith, Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient, because she had received the spies in peace. And what more should I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, obtained promises, shut the mouths of lions, quenched raging fires, escaped the edge of the sword, won strength out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received their dead by resurrection. Others were tortured, refusing to accept release in order to obtain a better resurrection. Others suffered mocking and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned to death. They were sawn in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, persecuted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains and in caves and holes in the ground. Yet all these, though they were commended for their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better, so that they would not, apart from us, be made perfect. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, who for the sake of the joy that was set before him endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. You may be seated. Ready to build a pyramid? So I was flipping through some pictures, old pictures, and I came upon one of a group of people, and I don't remember, it may have been camp, I don't remember what it was. But they built a human pyramid, right? And how many of you have ever built a human pyramid? Right? Right. Now, I've done it, and I usually get selected to be the first one, right in the center on the bottom row because of my sturdiness. Right? Right? And you get down, right? And then they line up next to you, and then the next row, they get on top, and then the next row, they get on top, and then they get on top, and then they get on top, and then they get on top, right? And you're, right? If you're down here, right? Now, you loftier folk, you get to climb and fly and be free, right? Right? And the thing is about this pyramid is the top is only as strong as the bottom row, right? That the bottom row is the sure foundation. So it's like I've been selected to be the sure foundation, right? Not so sure. So today, to show you that we can build a human pyramid, we are going to what? build a human pyramid. Come on, get down, Ring. No, sit back down, sit back down. She would have, She's like, I'll do this, Pop. That's all right. Right? So this notion of a human pyramid is what we get in the reading from Hebrews today. Right? It talks about all these stories, right, about people that we're called to remember. Now, in our martial arts system, at the beginning and end of every class, we do 3 bows. And the first bow is to the showmen, which in Okinawan means those who have gone before us. So we show respect at the beginning and the end for those whose shoulders we stand upon to practice the art that we practice. We remember them. And if you ever get to our studio, you'll see we have a showman, and it's a picture of all my teachers. So when we bow in, we remember my teachers and my teachers' teachers and my teachers' teachers' teachers. And in fact, we learn the lineage all the way back to the start of our system. To remember those who have come before us, upon whose shoulders we stand as we bow into the training. That's what this is all about today. Remembering those who have gone before us. So the author of the letter of Hebrews starts reminding people of who's gone before them. Remember, this letter is written to Christians who were Hebrew and have converted. And so they're using the Hebrew stories of faith that they would know. They went to Sunday school with Moses or something. And so they know these stories, right? And so they get the story of the people who passed through the Red Sea. The story of captives being released. They get the story of the walls of Jericho, right? Remember, God says, the first day you're going to walk around once and blow the trumpet. And the second day you're going to walk around once and blow the trumpet. The third day you're going to walk, and you're going to do that. But then on the 7th day you're going to walk around 7 times and blow the trumpet, and the walls are going to fall down. Okay, go at it. And they went, what? But then they did it. In 7 days, and they walked around, blew the trumpets. What happened? The walls of Jericho came tumbling down. That's what the song says. Right? We're called to remember the people who did crazy things because God told them to. Why did they do it? They took a leap of thank you. Right? We hear the story about Rahab, who is a prostitute, who, if you look closely at Jesus' lineage in Matthew 1, Luke 4, you'll see the name of Rahab the prostitute. It was actually in Jesus' family tree. Right? She was an outcast who was spared because she did what? She did the work of God. Trusted. She was not a person of faith, but trusted and believed. And then becomes a person of faith. And then they start to roll through stories about Samson, who lost his hair. I'm in touch with that. Jephthah, who killed his daughter. David, who was not so upright, but yet he still became king. Right? Samuel, who mentored young people to serve God without question. And then we have the prophets to call to memory. Those people who didn't seem to do a lot of good because they rarely had anything good to say. And so what do we do to the prophets? Kill them. Right? These are the people that the story, the author of Hebrews lifts up and says, this is your firm foundation. These are the stories of people that got down on their hands and knees so that you can climb to the top of the mountain, of the pyramid, so you could be the one who gets to be at the very top. These are the people you need to remember. And these remembrance stories, if you look it up when you get home or later, you'll see that there's more stories. This just kind of takes a section out of them. But there's a lot more stories. And they conquered, it says. They overcame. They defeated. They adapted and won. And the author reminds us they conquered kingdoms, administered justice, obtained the promises of God. They shut the mouths of people who need to be quieted. They quench the fires that need to be put out. They escape the sword. They built great strength in weakness, it said. They became mighty. They sent people away who needed to go. And we hear this as a mission statement. This is what our firm foundation did for us who are now at the top of the pyramid, the top of the story, right? And they did it by faith, is what it says. By faith, the author writes. By faith, the author writes. By faith. They took a leap of faith and did what needed to be done. But then, as we roll through all the stories, then the author gets to the turn and says, therefore. You should always be careful. Whenever it says therefore, underline it, right? I'm one of those people that writes in the Bible, underline it, because here it comes, right? Therefore, right? For this very reason, for this very place in time, therefore, we all need to get down on our hands and knees. Because at some point in time, we're going to be the firm foundation that other generations need to stand upon. That's why we need to know what to do. That's why we need these stories. Because now is time for us to be the people in the pyramid. Right? We are surrounded, it says, therefore, we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. Right? Surrounded, they're among us. And you've heard me preach before where I believe heaven is, and I believe heaven is where? Right here. Revelation tells us that, right? They're almost to that point in the Bible study. We'll all come and listen to that chapter. When you guys do it, raise your hands, right? So we're surrounded by all those who have gone before us and all their stories that come with them. Why? So that we can be at the top of the pyramid. Right? Now I looked up the Greek word for witness. It says, surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. And I said, what does this witness mean when the author wrote this word? And the word in Greek is martyron. Witness or martyr. These are people that gave everything, including their lives, for the faith. These are the people that got down on their hands and knees in the dirt so that we could be at the top of the pyramid, because they gave everything, even their very lives, for the faith. And as you roll through the reading in Hebrews, you hear what happened to them. Right? Well, we struggle with this word martyr in our faith. But the most recognizable sign of our faith is a what? It's a cross. To remind us that the faith life is about sacrifice. It is about putting your whole life on the line for the faith. Now, historians and theologians tell us, and I'll be honest, I haven't verified this, but there's many sources this says, that there were more Christian martyrs in the 20th century alone than in the first 19 combined. Fact check me. Think about that. Right? Think about today is actually the commemoration of Kai Monk and Maximilian Kolbe. I'll commend them to your search. Pastors in the 40s in Europe who stood up and said no. And you can imagine how they were martyred. And the millions of people who stood up and said no for the faith. Well, We're called to sacrifice it all. We're called to put it all on the line. We are. We are called to be witnesses, to be martyrs, to lay even our very life on the line for the faith, to put it all down for the kingdom of God, right? To lay aside, the writer of Hebrews says, to lay aside everything, our sin, our good, to lay it all aside. You know, Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me. And he meant it. Why? Therefore, right? Because as we see, right, as time goes on, you move down on the pyramid to the point where it's our hands and knees that are in the dirt. So her generation and the generations after her have a firm foundation to stand on. So we have to ask ourselves, what foundation are we giving them? Because they are only as strong as what? The foundation we give them. This in less than a month, we're going to celebrate the 148th anniversary of Emanuel Lutheran Church in Marion. We will. And in 2 years, we're going to celebrate the 150th. We're going to spend a whole year celebrating the 150th, actually. It'll be fun as we remember those who have come before us. Right? But in the midst of that conversation, we need to ask ourselves, what foundation are we preparing for the next 150 years? Because people in the next generations will not be telling stories about Reverend Hollinson. They'll be telling stories about you. And what foundation are we giving them with those stories? So we are commended, right, it says. Now, I know many times we think, I've been down on the bottom, and you think you just can't hold. But the triune God tells us to run with perseverance the race, because you will finish, God says. You will finish this race. You will have the strength to hold. You are capable of being the foundation for layers to stand on, maybe even 14 or 15, right? Terry has a picture you all need to look at. She heard the sermon earlier, so, right? Why? Because the world is crumbling around us. And the church has the firm foundation to support the entire world. I believe that to be true. We have the capacity and capability to be the firm foundation for a world that's crumbling. It just means we got to get down on our hands and knees and get dirty. And give it all we got. This is one of the reasons I commend through the liturgical year of hearing the stories and doing commemorations of those who have gone before us. Because we're empowered and inspired by their stories. And I also know that others will be empowered by our stories. And so their story becomes our story. And our story becomes their story. And ultimately, we come to realize it's not our story at all. It's God's story. And God has empowered, commanded us to go write a story of a firm foundation. And God has given us the base of the pyramid upon which everything rests, the firm foundation of Christ.
As we join together confessing our common faith,